Dreams for PS4 has finally come out of early access after 7 years in development, and Media Molecule's successor to Little Big Planet will be something to savour for many gamers, but also needs to be explained to many others as to exactly what it is. The strengths of Dreams for some can also be its weaknesses to others, but first and foremost to those interested is that Dreams should be seen as a set of creative tools which give players a huge amount of freedom in creating anything they wish to. From in-depth games in any genre they like, to creating characters, scenery, pictures and environments. There is already a lot of content that players can make their way through, and with more and more being created all the time, there is a lot to get through within Dreams. Apart from its short campaign, which shows gamers what can be achieved with the tools on offer, you'll also get to play through and view what members of the community are working on. Dreams can be split between the creative side and that of playing or experiencing the content, which would be how the majority of gamers play this. The game can be seen as a starting point for many wanting to try creating a game or curious about game development. It is an incredibly ambitious, fascinating and intriguing experience, but its success will ultimately depend upon its community, support from the developer, and seeing these games or experiences grow in both length and complexity, which will keep players coming back, and content creators putting in the time to keep creating. So let's take a look at Dreams, why it's so impressive now, but also why the future looks even brighter. So for the final game, Media Molecule has included somewhat of a story campaign to give players an idea and understanding of what the tools in Dreams can accomplish. It's the story of a double bass player who questions his abilities and how that affects his bandmates. You're looking at around 3 hours to complete it, and it incorporates many different gameplay styles, from point-and-click adventure games of yesteryear to third-person shooters, 2D shooters, and platforming sections. What we have in the end is an adequate introduction to Dreams, but I think of it as a mishmash of game styles and storytelling to better understand what can be achieved other than being anything that's actually memorable or completely makes sense. I found it quite slow to get going, and it wasn't really until about halfway through where things became more fun. But even with it serving as an example to what players can make themselves, it's important to be realistic as well, whereby creating something of this length with all of its variety is going to need some serious commitment and time to get similar results. Moving on from that, players can choose to get stuck into playing the content that the community has created, or can undertake trying to make something themselves. Now for me, much of my time was spent experiencing what others have created, so let's start there. Having the game in early access for a substantial amount has given players time to create many different worlds and content to explore, and they each will differ in their complexity and length, graphical quality, and other variances which come with being able to create whatever you like. Much of the content contains actual games you can play, be it platformers, racing, action-adventure, or RPGs, but then you also have other experiences which may be more of a tech demo or creators showing you something they are working on but isn't playable at all quite yet. Now you need to remember that the vast majority of what's on offer here is created by other players within the Dreams community, but my main complaint, if you want to call it that, is that I was after more lengthy games to play, as even the longest ones can be completed in around 15 to 30 minutes at the most. It's important to know this about Dreams at the moment. It doesn't yet contain a large number of long, in-depth experiences, as the game has only just come out and creators will build upon these games as time goes on. I did find myself going through dozens and dozens of experiences, but there were those instances where I just wanted more, and this was for two reasons. Firstly, I was switching between different content too regularly and couldn't really settle on one experience for a decent amount of time, which is what I was after. But secondly, and more importantly, some of these games and other content are just incredible to witness. I'm not even saying that I was impressed because it was someone at home who created it. I was impressed whether it was that one person or a full development studio who were in the early phases of creating a game. Some are just beautiful to look at and experience, and would be games I would most definitely play more when they became larger and more fleshed out. Some of these are so impressive simply based on their technical accomplishment and what has been achieved with the tools, not so much what they offer gameplay-wise. I did find that this could vary wildly between games, and especially within the same genre, just like any game can from professional development houses. The footage you're now seeing is of the games which impressed me a lot. You can easily tell the more realistic looking games from the more cartoony ones, but each of these had a lot of love, time and care put into them, and I thought they were worth showing and speaking about. Some of these are incredibly short and is simply the one small area. It is really a work in progress, and you get to see and play it firsthand. Seriously, if some of these creators were able to work on these full time with a small team, then it would evolve into something very special. A few areas which I feel does need work in many of the games on offer and can hopefully be refined as creators have more time with Dreams is that of the control, movement of player characters, and the camera. There are the occasions when loading up a game where you can tell a lot of work has gone into it from a visual or even sound standpoint, but when it comes to controlling the character, movement and animation can be very basic and the controls lack responsiveness, as if you're trying to control something which lacks weight and the movement isn't very natural when you expect it to be. These are observations when it comes to my experience with the many creations and not so much a criticism of them, as like I said earlier, these aren't professionally made games. But when comparing similar games to each other, it is something you'll definitely notice. Now, you've probably already seen footage of games such as Fallout 4, Dead Space, Crash Bandicoot, and even the PT demo being recreated within Dreams. And this goes to show what can be achieved with the tools on offer. But players also need to keep their expectations in check, as sure, you can play a small amount of something which is very faithful to the likes of Fallout or Dead Space, but those expecting a one-to-one recreation is only setting themselves up for disappointment. And as I mentioned, movement may feel off. There's a lack of animation in character movement, or elements are missing such as sound effects. These are interesting to experience, and some have an incredible amount of work put into them, but throughout my playtime, I tended to favour the original creations as I wasn't going into it with a preconceived idea of what to expect from these. It's a testament to the tools on offer and the determination of some creators to challenge themselves in recreating their favourite games, and there are several successful examples of this. In terms of recreations of existing games, a special mention must go to the PT demo, which was to become Silent Hills, and where it can live on in Dreams after being taken off the PSN store years ago. But it's good to see user-created content holds up fantastically against these experiences. In terms of performance, there were many instances where I came into frame rate problems across a number of the games though, and they would almost have this stutter effect to them. This tended to happen when there was a lot going on the screen, or the world or level was quite large, which was obviously putting a strain on the hardware. Hopefully this can be ironed out somewhat, but this will be difficult considering it's mostly user-created content. Seeing Dreams transition onto the PS5 and onto PC would be great to see, as the power of next-gen hardware and PCs would benefit the games a lot, as would keyboard and mouse support. Why mouse support isn't included already is quite baffling, as even with the options of the Move controllers, motion controls, or using the analog sticks, this game is perfect for mouse and keyboard support and would make creating content much easier. But the menus are slick and loading into each game or experience is quite quick, with loading being at a minimum, which is crucial when you'll be going in and out of different games regularly, and finding new games or certain types is also fairly intuitive and simple. The controls and lack of proper keyboard and mouse support becomes more of an issue when it comes to creating content though. Now, I'll preface this in saying that I don't have the time nor the patience to invest hundreds, if not thousands of hours into the creative side of Dreams and getting to a level where I'm extremely comfortable with the tools on offer, let alone creating something remarkable. Dreams does a good job in easing players into the world of creation with small quests which need to be completed and will teach you a new way to move, manipulate, change, or create something within the workspace. This is where a mouse would be perfect, as using both the analog sticks and motion controls can be very cumbersome and time-consuming, and just lacks the intuitiveness that only a mouse can give. I didn't have a chance to try the Move controllers, but these would perhaps be better, especially when creating content as opposed to playing with them, where regular controls would offer a better experience when it comes to gameplay. There are many aspects to learn when it comes to wrapping your head around the creative mode of Dreams, and creating anything is going to take time and commitment until you become more comfortable with the controls and limitations of the game. The textures which cover surfaces in Dreams are known as flecks, and these can be manipulated into making surfaces look more cartoony or much more realistic. Using the sculpt mode lets players create various objects which the flex can be applied to, plus others which allows players to refine their creations. The tools within Dreams gives the freedom to choose pre-existing assets or create almost anything from scratch, provided a creator wants to put the time into it. One area I expect to improve when creators have had more time with the game is that of animations. smoothing them out to either be more realistic or at least believable. Oftentimes, the player character can act and behave like a ragdoll, missing muscle mass and density, and when coupled with the awkward control sometimes, it made me aware that simply more time is needed with these creations. And I expect the same when it comes to music and sound effects as well, when they're given time to mature, giving players more of what they've come to expect from other games. But even with that, there have been some good musical pieces to accompany the games available, even though the variety is more minimal and the soundtrack or score can tend to loop quite quickly. The tools are available to create some great quality music, but only time will tell if enough is invested from creators to deliver some memorable pieces, considering all the other work that's involved in delivering one of these games or experiences. Sound effects could also be similar in that they will improve and become more diverse. Once again, these are just observations and not criticisms, considering the young age of Dreams and the amateur nature of the creations. Helping the creators along the way are the workshop tutorials, which help in understanding the tools on hand, but trial and error will still be needed to get the best results. Having more information whilst creating games would also be a good addition, such as how many assets have been used or the size of the game world and how it's impacting the frame rate and the resolution, so that games can be tweaked to offer a smoother experience. But when playing through so many different experiences, Dreams gives a lot of creative freedom for those who wish to explore all it has to offer. As time goes on and people have even more time with the game, there will constantly be new things to try and discover, but it will also be great to follow certain games over their development and see how they evolve. This is where I hope to see support and communication from Media Molecule and those creating games within Dreams. The developer will in no way be able to deliver enough of their own content to satisfy gamers, so the success of Dreams and it having a healthy future will be dependent on the community and their feedback and having features added over time to further improve the game. It needs developer support so it can grow and not become another Project Spark. This evolution of the game with features being added is also going to be important in making sure players stick with the game or have them coming back regularly. In a year or two from now, players such as myself will be looking to play more complicated and complex games, different to what is on offer now, and what is currently there gets built upon. Having the non-playable content slowly evolve into its own game and possibly even having several community members helping each other out on the same game. Dreams also lets players share their creation, of course, but also gives players the choice whether it should be played as is or if others are able to make changes to it. Dreams has a robust set of tools where players can create games, short films, cinematics, and other experiences, whilst also learning about how logic works within video games to a point, but also giving enough options so much of what is created won't just look similar to many others that have already been made. Examples such as the PT demo show what Dreams is capable of as it is now, and there are already a large amount of creations which are vastly different to each other and are worth playing to see the ideas that people are having and how they are executing them. Whether it be a beat 'em up or a racing game, or whether it's just a short demo with a creator testing out the possibilities before building upon it, Dreams is already a worthy purchase, especially if you're interested in starting out with game creation and being a part of a community focused on the same thing, especially as it isn't a full price game as well. Dreams has been an interesting experience for myself, as even though I may not be totally enjoying the game sometimes, there are so many I just lost hours in constantly trying new ones and discovered some gems which can become even better with more time and polish. The real power of Dreams will be seen 3 or 4 years from now and seeing what the community can come up with and what Media Molecule adds to the game. If they can build upon the fantastic foundation which is already here, I can see many gamers, especially those creating, not wanting to ever wake up from this dream.